Seiler. I am the User Experience Manager here at the Saline County Library, and I would like to tell you a bit more about the award-winning author, Dr. Nancy Hendricks. Her book, Senator Hattie Caraway, An Arkansas Legacy, offers a fresh look at Hattie Caraway, the first woman elected to the United States Senate, and she was from right here in Arkansas. It was recently named by Cosmopolitan magazine as one of the 20 political books all women should read. You may have seen Nancy as Caraway in the film Hattie Caraway, the Silent Woman, which was shown on AETN. In addition, Nancy performs nationwide in her one-person program, Hattie to Hillary, Women in Politics. Among Nancy's honors are the Pryor Award for Arkansas History, the Arkansas Governor's Arts Award, the White House Millennium Award, and the Daughters of the American Revolution Women in Arkansas History Award. Nancy's most recent book, 100 Notable Arkansas Women, received a rave feature story in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette and was named an Arkansas Gem by the Arkansas State Library to be represented at the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C. But right now, our special guest is none other than Senator Hattie Caraway. Senator Caraway!
Oh, I was so afraid I was going to be late. That Senate vote ran on and on, all those speeches. Now, I know they call me Silent Hattie Caraway because I don't make all those long-winded speeches my male colleagues are known for, but, sometimes I believe it's better to remain silent and appear a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt. Oh, it is so good to be here with you tonight, and I want to thank you for coming. It's always so good to be at the Saline County Library because I think it just attracts the best group of people. Now, of course, I died in the year 1950, so it's good to be anywhere, but it's especially good here to be with you tonight. Now, for those of you that don't know me, let me properly introduce myself. My name is Hattie Caraway. That's Senator Hattie Caraway, and I was the first woman elected to the United States Senate from right here in Arkansas. I served the years 1932 to 1945, and even though today a lot of people aren't, they're just not real familiar with my work, I'm proud to say that there are those who pointed out that I had a role in presenting on the floor of the Senate what's been called one of the most momentous pieces of legislation in our country's history. Well, that's a very good thing, but what have I done for Arkansas? Well, if you or anyone in your family went to school here in Arkansas, to one of our great colleges or universities, there's a good chance they benefited from something that I was able to bring to Arkansas. But I'm not here to talk about myself because, you see, I've been included in a new book called The Notable Women of Arkansas, From Hattie to Hillary, 100 Names to Know. And I thought tonight, instead of talking about myself, perhaps I could talk about some of the women that I like to think of as my 99 new best friends. But first, I was a former school teacher, and I can't help but, I hate to call it a pop quiz, but let's just see how much we know about Arkansas women. For example, which Arkansas woman topped the charts as a Grammy-nominated singer and was a regular on the beloved TV series Little House on the Prairie? Anyone, just feel free to speak up. All right, this just kind of warms us up. Let's try another one. Which Arkansas woman was a pioneering aviator during the 1920s and 30s who, along with Miss Amelia Earhart, was one of America's most famous female pilots? Okay, I can tell you're thinking about it. We're going to try something else here. Let's go to showbiz for a moment. Which Arkansas woman played Sheriff Andy's love interest on the Andy Griffith Show, as well as the only one of TV lawyer Perry Mason's clients ever to be convicted? Okay, that's churning around too. Which Arkansas woman was the first African-American woman signed to a contract with a national television network, helping pave the way for black women in glamour roles? Okay, now let's try some. Let's go to sports. Which Arkansas woman is honored at the Baseball Hall of Fame for her work with the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and had a role in the hit movie A League of Their Own?
Is that Dee White?
No, she wasn't in the movie.
I didn't think she was in the movie, but she was.
Very close, very close. Sue Kidd, one syllable name. So you got that right. All right, we are rolling now. All right, let's try a softball question here. Which Arkansas woman was a candidate for President of the United States in 1996 and was a vice presidential candidate in the year 2000? Okay, you know what?
Shirley Chisholm.
I've got a book for you.
Wasn't that Shirley Chisholm?
Her name is Mary Cal Hollis, and she's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Really?
And I'll give you a hint, she did not run on the Republican ticket or the Democratic ticket. It was for the American Socialist Party, but she had her name on the ballot. I suppose that's all that counts. Well, why don't we settle back here and kind of, well, just get to know a few more of our Arkansas women. Because these are some of the women that I like to think of as my 100 new best friends. Some were born in Arkansas, some were raised in Arkansas, and some chose Arkansas later in life. Some were born in poverty, while others came from unimaginable wealth. We're talking to you, Alice Walton. They blazed trails in athletics, in civil rights, in literature, politics, in show business, and science, and the arts. They're living and dead, past and present, but all represent the diversity of our state. Now, in the book, for reasons of space, the entries had to be limited to 100. Each Arkansas woman in the book had to have made her mark on the national stage. We might say, well, they were as well known in Fort Worth as Fort Smith. But what is an Arkansas woman? I think perhaps a place to start is how Arkansas women have been portrayed to the world as fictional characters. 3 of the most noteworthy have been represented over the state in both books and movies over the years. And let's see, what can they tell us about Arkansas women? Nellie Forbush of South Pacific first appears in James Michener's book and in the Broadway musical and the movie of the same name. Nellie Forbush of Little Rock is an adventuresome Navy nurse in World War II who wants to see the world, but she's stunned by what she sees there, as well as by her own reactions to it. She's forced to confront her ingrained racial prejudices and ultimately grows to overcome them. Now, incidentally, the movie version of South Pacific, dealing with racial prejudice, was being filmed in 1957. The same time as the Little Rock integration crisis. But that little girl from Little Rock, well, let's see where'd that little girl from Little Rock go? Lorelei Lee. She first appears in a best-selling book, the stage version of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, that introduced the song that expressed Lorelei's philosophy. Sing it with me, sisters. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. In the 1953 movie, Lorelei Lee was portrayed by Marilyn Monroe in the film that made her a star, and the two became inextricably linked. When a character in the film says he thought she was dumb, Marilyn, as Lorelei, replies, "I can be smart when it's important, but most men don't like it." The line was suggested by Monroe herself. With a good nature and a single-mindedness of purpose, Little Rock's Lorelei Lee is dealt a Hollywood happy ending. It's impossible to think of single-mindedness of purpose without considering Mattie Ross a true grit. She's the 14-year-old heroine of the Charles Portis novel, the 1969 movie, and the remake in 2010. Mattie Ross is the story's heart and soul, setting off on a perilous journey to avenge her father's murder. She's a person of what she calls grit, firmness of character, indomitable spirit, courage, and tenacity. And perhaps that might be the key. See, Arkansas women whether real or fictional characters like Nellie and like Lorelei and like Maddie, have grit. And in this book, you'll meet 100 of them. But unless you fear that you needed to bring a sleeping bag for tonight's presentation, we're not going to do all 100 of them. And so how are we going to select a few for your delight and illumination? Well, as you may know, that darling Nancy Hendricks writes for the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. And many of the women that are in the book were women that she wrote about for the encyclopedia. But there are several that are not yet on the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. Notice I use the word yet. But these are ladies who are not represented anywhere else at this point, and I think this would be a good time to meet them. Dr. Mary Good went to high school in an Arkansas town of less than 200 people, and that's the town had less than 200 people, not the school. As you can gather, the school offered neither chemistry nor a chem lab, but Dr. Good went on to become a nationally renowned chemist and an industry leader. Mary Good was the first person elected to the board of the American Chemical Society. She was appointed to the National Science Foundation by U.S. President Jimmy Carter, becoming the first person of the female persuasion to chair that board. She was reappointed by Ronald Reagan, and President George H.W. Bush appointed her to the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. During all three presidential appointments, she continued to work in top leadership positions for the Allied Signal Corporation. Though during the Bill Clinton administration, Good left Allied Signal to become the U.S. Undersecretary for Technology. So what a slacker, leaving her day job to become the U.S. Undersecretary of Technology. But after that, she returned to Arkansas. And Dr. Good became the founding dean of ULR's Donaghy College of Engineering and Information Technology. After retiring in 2011, she continues as a national advocate for women in STEM, say it with me, science, technology, engineering, and math. We're on a roll now. Dr. Good was one of only 5 national dignitaries who were honored at the inaugural U.S. News STEM Leadership Hall of Fame. Dr. Good has been quoted as saying, in something of an understatement, there weren't very many role models for women in the sciences in the 50s. Kay Goss of Fayetteville is an internationally renowned author, educator, and federal emergency management official. She wrote the first full-scale biography of Arkansas's powerful U.S. Congressman, Wilbur Mills. She served as a senior assistant for intergovernmental relations for 2 Arkansas governors, and finally was appointed Associate Director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, where she served from 1994 to the year 2001. While at FEMA, her areas of responsibility included overseeing national preparedness and directing training exercises on a national basis, as well as planning for 1999's possible Y2K worldwide computer breakdown at the turn of the new millennium. Now, as I look out into the audience tonight, you're probably much too young to remember the year 1999. But you see, computers have been programmed in the 20th century, and in some of their code, they only use the last 2 numbers, like 87 for 1987 or 92 for 1992. And there was some fear that somewhere buried in all that computer code, when the year 2000 rolled over, that 00 was going to confuse the computers so much that, well, they could shut down or blow up or do whatever it is that computers do when they're confused. Now today we look back on the Y2K scare as, well, something of amusement, like we might look at pet rocks. But I promise you that in 1999, it was a huge deal, because people simply did not know what was going to happen. In a town like the size of Bryant or Benton, I guarantee your city governments were scrambling to figure out what might possibly happen. The 911 system, or police and fire calls, or the water system, or anything that used a computer, which by the year 1999 was most functions. Imagine having to take responsibility for an entire nation. And that was what our Arkansas girl Kay Goss did. Now again, I know we look back on that Y2K thing as something quaint, but I'll tell you this. There's not too many people that were willingly flying on an airplane on December 31st, 1999 at midnight. In addition to all of that, during her term at FEMA, there were almost 350 disaster areas declared in all 50 states, and Kay handled those. Subsequent to her work at FEMA, she's written the go-to books on international disaster management and worked with Homeland Security. In 2011, presumably in her spare time, she formed her own company, World Disaster Management, LLC. Dina Castor is our own Olympic medalist for the 26-mile marathon. She holds American records in both the marathon and the half marathon, and is an 8-time national cross-country champion. She was named the top women's marathoner in the world by Track and Field News magazine. As part of the University of Arkansas's renowned track and field program, she was running about 55 miles a week. Now that's over 2 marathons. 55 miles is about the distance from Little Rock to Hot Springs, and I don't care how big an Oaklawn fan you are, the thought of running from Little Rock to Hot Springs every week might be a daunting proposition. Dina also, obviously, became a multiple All-American at the University of Arkansas. She's held records in distances from 5,000 meters to the full 26-mile marathon. And she won the 2004 Olympic bronze medal in the marathon in Athens, the first American woman in 20 years to medal in that event. She suffered a broken foot at the 5-kilometer mark of the 2008 Beijing Olympics, which did slow her down just a bit. But many people especially remember her tenacity at the year 2000's World Cross Country Championships in Portugal, when soon after the start of the race, a bee flew into Castor's mouth and stung the back of her throat. She stayed with the leaders, but her throat started to close up, blocking her air. She blacked out, but after regaining consciousness, she continued the race. She fell, but she got up again, and she still managed to finish among the top 12 in a race of hundreds. She was quoted, again in something of an understatement, as saying, "Bless you." What Dina said was, "I was scared, but you don't want to quit when you've trained so hard and long." And I don't know if y'all had the chance to watch the Olympics just last week in Rio, but another Arkansas girl that's right here in this book, Veronica Campbell Brown, represented our country as an Olympian in Rio, and we are so proud of our Arkansas female athletes. Ketty Lester of Hope is a singer and actress best known for her chart-topping single, Love Letters, and I know you know this, love letters straight from the heart. Stop me before I sing the whole thing. In 1957, at age 22, she appeared as a contestant on the popular TV program You Bet Your Life, hosted by comedian Groucho Marx. After commenting on her striking beauty, Marx asked if she would sing a song, and seemingly unrehearsed, she performed an upbeat version of You Do Something to Me with the show's musicians. After a rousing ovation from the audience, Groucho said, "You're going to be one of our top stars before long. Very few people can sing that hot." And for those of you that are familiar with YouTube, you can find that clip, and it is indeed both cool and hot. Ketty Lester was nominated for a 1963 Grammy as Best Female Pop Vocalist, competing with Peggy Lee, Lena Horne, and Ella Fitzgerald, who ultimately won. But to be nominated among those three ladies is an honor in itself. Ketty's film and TV acting career includes more than 60 credits. Ketty Lester appeared in such feature films as 1972's cult classic Blackula, the first horror movie in the genre called blaxploitation. Lester's TV appearances include That Girl, Julia, Sanford and Son, Love American Style, Marcus Welby MD, Streets of San Francisco, The Waltons, Lou Grant, Happy Days, Hill Street Blues, St. Elsewhere, In the Heat of the Night, and LA Law. It'd be a whole lot easier just to name some of the shows this Arkansas girl did not appear on. For 2 years, Ketty Lester portrayed Helen Grant on the daytime drama Days of Our Lives. But she was especially well known as a regular on Michael Landon's beloved Little House on the Prairie, playing Hester Sue Terhune. From 1927 to 1940, journalist Pauline Pfeiffer was the second of Ernest Hemingway's 4 wives. At Pauline's family home in Piggott, Arkansas, Hemingway wrote some of his most memorable works, and Hemingway himself credited Pauline with being the best editor that he ever worked with. He's such a romantic. She is remembered for being Hemingway's partner during his most significant creative period. Pauline Pfeiffer met the up-and-coming writer Ernest Hemingway in 1925 while on assignment for Vogue in Paris, and that's Paris, France, not Arkansas. Their affair became known to the Paris arts community, including Hemingway's wife, and soon-to-be ex-wife. And if any of y'all have read the book, The Paris Wife, there's a small incident in there which kind of gives you an idea of when Mr. Hemingway's first wife started to become suspicious, which is when Pauline climbed into bed with Mr. and Mrs. Hemingway naked. That's the kind of thing that a woman just sort of knows. Until his divorce was final, Pauline returned home to Arkansas, during which time Hemingway sent her his manuscripts for editing. Again, so romantic. After marrying in 1927, they often spent time in Piggott, Arkansas, where a small barn at the Pfeiffer home was converted into his private writing studio, where Hemingway worked on the novel A Farewell to Arms. During Pfeiffer's marriage to Hemingway, several of his major works were published, including A Farewell to Arms, Death in the Afternoon, and The Green Hills of Africa, an account of a 1933 safari with Pauline. But by 1936, the Hemingway marriage was in conflict, partly due to each of them favoring opposite sides in the Spanish Civil War. Now, you know, some couples argue about money, but their argument was about the Spanish Civil War. They're different from you and me. Pauline was granted a divorce in 1940, 3 weeks before Hemingway's marriage to another woman. Now, I've seen this Ernest Hemingway, and I suppose he's a fine enough looking man, but just between us, he's no Mark Harmon. Lee Purcell, after graduating from Paragould High School up in northeast Arkansas, she left at 17 to become an Emmy-nominated actress, producer, writer, and director. She moved to Los Angeles at age 17 with absolutely no support from her family, where she worked nights in an LA boutique to pay her expenses. At an audition with about 500 other women, she was chosen by legendary movie star Steve McQueen, who said he selected her from the hundreds of other more experienced actresses because, as he put it, she seemed to jump right out of the screen. This was her first feature film, and it was the first for McQueen's production company. It was 1970's Adam at 6 a.m., co-starring Michael Douglas, who you may have heard of. The slender Purcell was told by McQueen that she had to gain 20 pounds to play the role, and I just have no comment about that. A small sample of Lee's film work includes starring roles in the movies Mr. Majestic, Stir Crazy, Eddie Macon's Run, and Valley Girl. She was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards for her television work in The Secret Sins of the Father, opposite Bo Bridges, and The Long Road Home, opposite Mark Harmon. Lee has appeared on such TV series as Persons Unknown, Due South, Murder, She Wrote, Hawaii Five-0, The Waltons, The Streets of San Francisco, The Rockford Files, Magnum P.I., Matlock, MacGyver, and Bonanza, among many others. She has the distinction of starring opposite two father-son duos, both Kirk and Michael Douglas, and Lloyd and Beau Bridges. She continues to work steadily. In fact, she was on TV just Sunday night, just night before last, on the Hallmark Movie Channel in a movie called The JL Ranch with a whole bunch of Academy Award winners. And, well, as Steve McQueen said, she just seemed to jump right out of the screen. She does continue to work steadily, and she's also a nice person. She bought a copy of the 100 Women book to donate to the Paragould Library. You gotta love someone like that. Blanche Thiebaum was a world-renowned soprano, opera director, and educator with her trademark 6-foot-long hair. She was among the first American opera singers to also have a highly successful international career and spent over 20 years with New York's Metropolitan Opera. After making her debut with the Met in 1944, she was especially noted for her performances in Wagnerian operas, where she often stunned audiences by allowing her 6-foot-long hair to drape her for dramatic effect. Imagine the wind machine and the ride of the Valkyries, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. If we had food here, this would almost be dinner theater. Thiebaum was also noted for her attractive appearance as well as her voice. She appeared in Hollywood films such as 1944's Irish Eyes Are Smiling, and also in The Great Caruso with Mario Lanza. After retirement from the Met, she brought her talents to Arkansas when she taught and directed opera productions at UALR for almost a decade. In 1973, she was invited to join UALR's music faculty, where she taught singing and directed the university's new opera program. Known as Miss T to her students, she directed 2 operatic productions each year. These included Amal and the Night Visitors, Alice, which was Thiebaum's own stage adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, The A-Star Experiment, Beret and Per Hansen, and Cinderella. Now, at this point, generally, if there are gentlemen in the audience, some of them are starting to doze off, and so we have to take some remedial action. And so, even though it's just us girls, I'd like to talk about a Little Rock native right here in Central Arkansas who is a cellist, a performance artist, and an advocate of avant-garde music. Her name is Charlotte Moorman, and she was the founder of the annual Avant-Garde Festival of New York, though she is more often remembered as the topless cellist, and that always gets people's attention. Charlotte attended Little Rock Central High School and was chosen Little Rock's Miss City Beautiful of 1952. She was awarded music scholarships and studied at New York City's Juilliard School. She became drawn to performance art as the encouragement of her friend and roommate, Yoko Ono. And yes, that is the Yoko Ono. After Moorman found that, like other females of the time, she was excluded from the Fluxus movement of avant-garde performance artists, Moorman went ahead and founded her own, the annual Avant-Garde Festival of New York. Although she always said she disliked the term avant-garde, meaning before of its time, she preferred of its time. Her festivals would include presentations by artists including Allen Ginsberg, Yoko Ono, and John Lennon, as well as Moorman herself, who often played the cello in, well, you'd have to call them unique configurations, such as one time hanging suspended from helium-filled balloons. In Moorman's performance of one called Ice Music, she played a cello-shaped block of ice in the nude until the ice melted. And just between us, I don't even want to think about freezer burns. Performance artist Namjoon Paik created many works specifically for Mormon, including one called TV Bra for Living Sculpture, in which two small television sets were attached to Mormon's breasts while she played cello. Mormon became known nationwide in 1967 for her arrest during a performance of Paik's Opera Sextronique in New York City, when she performed on the cello in various states of nudity as required by the score. Mormon was charged with indecent exposure. She made appearances on television programs like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, always being billed as the topless cellist. After her arrest for indecent exposure, Mormon said, "Imagine me. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there I was in New York in handcuffs and overnight in jail." Now, thanks to someone that you might know, Richard Clark, who's active with the Pulaski County Historical Society, happened to go to school. He was in the same high school graduating class as Charlotte, and he provided her high school graduation picture, as well as how Charlotte was being followed by the Arkansas Gazette. Now, some of you might recall a book that was very popular in the 1960s called The Medium is the Massage by Marshall McLuhan. And in the book, it has, well, hundreds of pages, but there are no captions to tell you who the people are. Imagine my surprise one day leafing through the book to see someone that, well, she was in the book with me, and I felt like this was someone I knew, like a friend of mine. Now, it's important to remember that the women in the book are all individuals, and like Charlotte, each one have their own backstory. But this is especially true of the 6 girls who are usually merged into one unit as the Little Rock Nine, who went through the Little Rock integration crisis in 1957. But I believe it's important to remember that of the 6 girls in that group, there were 6 separate stories. It's also extremely important to remember that, like Thelma here, they were just children at the time, and they faced daily ordeals just for going to school. But it's also important to remember that not only did they have lives before 1957, they had lives after 1957, and it was an honor to tell their stories as individuals, as well as the ultimate reward for their struggles. Carlotta Walls Lanier sent this photo of her high school graduation picture. She wanted that especially to be in the book, and I think that's probably a prime example of keeping eyes on the prize. Most of the 100 women presented in the book overcame challenges to ride at the top. Not only were they notable, they were exemplary. I believe we can be so proud of their stories, which can be inspiring, not only to young people, but to each one of us. And I believe we can be so proud to call them Arkansas women. Thank you so very much. Thank you. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
The answers to those first.
All right, that is an excellent one. I was hoping someone would say that. Okay, which Arkansas woman topped the charts as a Grammy-nominated singer and was a regular on the beloved series Little House on the Prairie? And we talked about her this evening, and you know that is Ketty Lester. Which Arkansas woman was a pioneering aviator during the 1920s and 30s who, along with Amelia Earhart, was one of America's most famous female pilots? Her name is Louise Thaden, and even though most of us do not know her name today, she was right up there, just head-to-head with Amelia Earhart. If you ever travel by plane to Bentonville, Arkansas, flying up to Walmart headquarters, they did graciously name the Bentonville Airport for Louise Thaden, who was, of course, a native of Bentonville, so we are so proud of her. Which Arkansas woman played Sheriff Andy's love interest on The Andy Griffith Show, as well as being the only one of TV lawyer Perry Mason's clients ever to be convicted? Her name is Julie Adams, and I believe if you ever watched Murder, She Wrote, one of my own personal favorites, she played the man-hungry real estate agent in town. And she was probably in her 70s when she was playing that role, and I must tell you, she looked fantastic. Many people remember her for another role that she played in the 1950s in a movie called The Creature from the Black Lagoon. She portrayed the Fay Wray part. You know how King Kong developed a crush on Fay Wray? Well, the creature from the Black Lagoon became much enamored of Arkansas's own Julie Adams. And she is still with us. She is a lovely and gracious person who does return emails and said that she loves to come back to Arkansas at just whenever she can. She's from up the road in Malvern, Arkansas. And I hope if she comes to see us, we'll have a chance to go see her. She's a lovely, lovely lady. Which Arkansas woman was the first African-American woman signed to a contract with a national television network, helping pave the way for black women in glamour roles? Her name is Ina Hartman. And if anybody here ever watches the show Columbo, the very first program on that series, in fact, it was the pilot, and it was called Prescription Murder. And if you look at the airport scene, you will see Arkansas's own Ina Hartman on Columbo and see her name there in the credits and think, well, that's one of our new friends. Which Arkansas woman is honored at the Baseball Hall of Fame for her work with the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and had a role in the hit movie A League of Their Own, and you knew that, that's Sue Kidd. And which Arkansas woman was a candidate for President of the United States in 1996 and was a vice presidential candidate in 2000. Her name was Mary Cal Hollis. She is from Pine Bluff. She lives in Denver now, but she did run, as we discussed earlier, on the American Socialist ticket, and again, got her name on the national ballot. So you can't hardly, well, perhaps she'll be joined by another Arkansas woman. Well, she already has been, hasn't she? So we have got across the board Arkansas women to be proud of, and it's been an honor for me to share some of them with you this evening. Are there any other questions that I might answer? I'll be glad to stay afterwards in case you think of anything. I want to thank you so much for your kind attention, and I want to thank our friends for Fidelity for feeling that it was significant enough to record for posterity. Again, I want to thank you all for coming, and let's give a hand to the wonderful women of Arkansas.